Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I'm Tara Lynn. Today is more of a 5 Acres Honey Garden video. I had done an earlier video on growing really nutrient-dense food and why that's important to me. And I wanted to highlight two plants that have been growing fairly well this year. One I'm growing for the first time, and the other has been kind of a reseeded, recurring little crop that I'll go into more detail about. In my earlier video, I mentioned Moringa, and Moringa is a tropical plant, and it's considered the most nutrient-dense food in the world. It has so many different beneficial properties. I've been trying to grow it for 2, potentially 3 years, and every year the seedlings just don't really, my camera here, just dropped the camera, but I'm back. So every year the seedlings just really struggled making it, and other factors involved, they just didn't really produce anything and kind of died out. So I started a few this year and really babied them, and just one made it, and it's doing really well. This year I actually didn't fertilize any of my plants, and I've definitely noticed that they're not as great as they would have been if I would have fertilized them. It was a little bit more of an experiment on my part. So right now we're in the middle of August. This is in the Piedmont area of North Carolina. With our climate here, it is very tropical in the summer. So Moringa, would be really happy in this space. So I'll show you a little bit about how the plant is doing and what my plans are for it. But Moringa in general has so many antioxidants. It's antifungal, anti-inflammatory. It actually has antibiotic properties. And I actually read something about it being an antidepressant. So with all of those different features, not to mention the vitamin and mineral content, and the amino acids, it's really a beneficial plant. And what I've been doing with Moringa is I've been taking the leaves and putting it into smoothies and smoothie bowls. And what I'll be doing soon is taking the leaves and dehydrating them to use throughout the year. It's not a tremendous size right now, so I'm not expecting to really harvest a lot. So I'm just gonna try to keep it going. And, as the season is coming to a close, it's not growing as rapidly, but I'll show you the plant. This is Moringa, and it's looking really good. So it's in a grow bag. It's about 2.5, 3 feet tall. I haven't seen any flowers on it yet, but from what I understand, it'll grow pods, and the entire plant is edible. So a little spider friend is hanging out here. But what I've been doing, like I mentioned, is I just will, let's see, right over here, I'll just kind of like cut this part off, and I'll use some of the leaves, and here comes Mr. Spider, in smoothies and smoothie bowls. I've also tossed a little bit in some pasta, at dinner time, because my husband really doesn't have smoothies, so I also want him to, get the benefits from it. So the plant, I started it from seed back in January, I think. So now we're in August, and I actually had a volunteer ground cherry pop up in there, so I just let them hang out for the summer. A few things to consider with Moringa. I've definitely kept it fairly generously watered, and you can see I've got like a little wine bottle in there. That's something that I've started doing in the past probably 2 years, is using that as like a supplemental water system. But Moringa, I've read that it has some applications for arthritis. It helps in helping chemotherapy be more effective. I've also read that because of its, the way that it reduces inflammation, it will help with cognitive decline and help slow that down. And it's been helping to support things from asthma to ulcers, and just a tremendous variety of applications. It's got 7 times more vitamin C than oranges, and 15 times more potassium than bananas. And I really try to seek out legitimate research, so looking up from like National Institute of Health and a lot of medical journals, and you'll find no shortage of information about it. Now that I have an actual moringa plant that's been successful, what I'm planning to do is, and there's still so much growth happening up here. So what I'm planning to do, since it's in a grow bag, is I want to, really boost its growth as we're going into fall and make sure it's really healthy. And then I'm going to move it into the high tunnel for the winter and provide it any kind of cover that it may need, just to see if it'll overwinter. I'm hoping it'll overwinter well. And then I do have a few seeds left, but not that many. And so I'm just gonna use all of them up in January when I start next year's garden. But I will be harvesting probably about a third of these leaves in the dehydrator, and hopefully that'll encourage some more growth before the fall, and I'll just keep doing that. The other plant that I wanted to share with you is purslane. And I read about purslane and how high in omega-3s that it is. And so 2 years ago, I'm like, this will be a great addition to the garden because I won't have to rely on like buying flaxseed or chia seeds for omega-3s. And a little note about omega-3s, there are 2 different types of omega-3, which I learned a lot more about when my dog was alive, because he had torn his ACL, and the doctor suggested he take some omega-3 supplements. And instead of giving him supplements, I was mixing flaxseed into his food. And then the doctor was educating me that there's some types of omega-3s that are found more in like animal-based sources, like certain omega-3s in fish. And then there are, plant-based ones. So she was really promoting the ones from fish sources. So the nice thing about purslane is that it has amounts of both types of omega-3s in varying amounts. And the maybe nice thing is that it's really easy to grow and it kind of just takes over. And I had read that purslane is considered a weed. And I decided when I read about things like that, I usually choose to grow in a pot to really get to know the plant before, spreading it out anywhere where it might take over. However, growing it in the pot really didn't stop it so far. And I'll show you like how insane their seeds are. It's really crazy. It also looks like a succulent plant, and it's actually very high water content, so it is kind of in that vein. And what I've been doing is I've been pulling the leaves off and putting the leaves in our salads and sandwiches, in pasta, just tossing it in fresh. I haven't dehydrated it yet. That's also my plan, is to dehydrate the purslane and the moringa. And what I do is I call it a microgreen so that my husband doesn't ask more about what it is, because if he's like, what's purslane, what's this, and he'll just start questioning it. But if I say it's a microgreen, there's no question, and he gets the benefits. This is purslane, and just like with moringa, very high magnesium and potassium and vitamin C. This also has iron, calcium, and like I mentioned before, very high omega-3 content, and it actually has 5 times more omega-3s than spinach of the same portion size. Very similar applications with helping to support anti-cancer activity in the body and diabetes, and all that's just helping to prevent. So with this note about how it really spreads, so this started as one plant, and then you see like there's so many in here, but I think I didn't even start it in this pot. I think I started it in a pot nearby, and it has just taken over here. But that's fine, because when I saw it coming up, I was like, I'm just gonna let it live in this little corner. So you can kind of see in here those little black spots. That's one of the little seed buds, like this little flowery thing, that has opened. So I'll kind of go to like this one so you can kind of see how crazy this is. So like when one of these opens, it's like hundreds of seeds in each of these things, and then it just goes everywhere. And I don't really care that it's falling down here, and you can kind of see there's poison sumac here. It's hard to get to because the previous owners put a rose bush here, which is not doing well. Something's been like chewing on it and stuff. This is just like a mess area right now. So I don't mind if this purslane goes down there because it has a lot to fight with. But that's what's been happening, and it falls down there. So that's kind of like why I position this pot on this side, because that way it's not going to interfere with my other potted plants, and it's not going to interfere with anything that I'm growing down there. But you can see it's also here in this is Sweet Alyssum. It's already started to pop up in here too. Here's another one. So I've tried, like when I see it at this state, like I've tried like taking it out and putting it in a salad or dropping it down or whatever, but it's still like, there's another one in here. It's still gonna find ways of popping up in places. But I'll show you also just like how invasive it is in another pot first. So this is another pot where you can just see like so many of them are coming up, and these are larger, more mature ones with so many little babies down there. They do really look like microgreens, so it's not completely a total fib when I call them that. But yeah, they really have taken over, and this is like another spot where I have it hanging over a space where I don't really care what's growing down there, and if it happens to spread down there, I'm okay with that. So 2 more things about moringa and purslane. If you're finding you're growing an abundance of them, one, I'd be curious to learn how you're growing an abundance of moringa because it's been so challenging for me to grow. But I imagine you probably have a lot of purslane, and if you're overwhelmed with getting it all dehydrated or getting tired of using them, you know, in your meals, you can also feed them to your chickens, and you know, and any, you know, I would check to see if they're good with other livestock. But that can help increase, you know, your vitamins and minerals in the eggs that you're getting from your chickens. And if you're harvesting chickens for meat, then you're getting healthier birds from that too. The other thing that I wanted to leave you with is that from everything that I read about both moringa and purslane is that there is no recommended serving size. So you don't really know like, oh, I should have a teaspoon of moringa a day or a cup of purslane, or, you know, like there are vitamin and mineral analyses done on them based on specific sizes of samples. But as far as like what's a recommended daily intake, it's very ambiguous. I'm taking that to be is that I don't have them every day, and I just have a few leaves at a time, and it's just one of those things that we're kind of adding in as like a little bit of diversity in our diet, and, you know, allowing it to be available for our bodies if our bodies need it. You know, definitely consider that as, you know, that there's no safe, you know, I guess like recommended portion size to consume. Of course, with any food or any supplement, always check with your medical professional about your unique health conditions. There are certain things that these plants may interact with where it might impact certain medication absorption, or it might react poorly with certain medications or certain conditions you might have. And just reinforcing again that I'm not a healthcare professional or certified in anything like that. I'm a hobby gardener, and just sharing what, you know, what I've learned about these plants and just my growing experience with them. If you're interested in learning more about nutrient-dense food, let me know in the comments and I'll do some more videos. And if you're growing something that is full of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, and I'd love to learn about it, and I'd love to grow it as well.